That's exactly why we get the weird twist plot of Kung Fu Panda 3. After all, the director had to keep the PG rating. They choose a happy ending over the real one, just to keep the kids. One classic, one masterpiece, then a total downhill slide. Kung Fu Panda 3 didn't just fail on logic, it failed on soul. It turned chi into a knock-off force, and wars turned a life-shattering identity crisis into a walk in the park. Paul fixed a broken family with a hug. In the real world, it takes a lifetime of scars. This happy ever after ending is honestly an insult to such complex emotions. So today, we're looking past the dumplings to explore the deep, unbridgeable gap between blood and bread in East versus West. Fake peace versus real scars. First off, in the real world, biological and adoptive fathers aren't just fighting for love. They are fighting for the big stuff. Whose last name should he take? Where should he live? Who is the real dad here? But the director took this deep power struggle and turned it into Mr. Ping's just being petty. He's portrayed like an insecure housewife, sneaking into Paul's suitcase because he's scared of being replaced. By turning this into a funny little accident, the movie dodges the serious battle for dignity and belonging that would actually happen between two men. They didn't solve the problem. They just laugh it off. Second, Li Shan straight up lies to Paul about Qi. In any normal story, a lie like that from your biological father would cause a total emotional meltdown. I mean, you find your real dad, and the very next day he calls you. Who just accept that? But Paul did. He was mad for like 3 minutes. Then Mr. Ping says he lied because he wanted to protect you, and suddenly Paul is totally fine with it. He even turns around to comfort the guy who just scammed him. This saint-like writing forces Paul to stay pure and grudge-free. Thirdly, Paul returns to the panda village and suddenly finds himself just by sleeping, kicking shuttlecocks, and eating dumplings like a panda. This turns identity into nothing more than a lifestyle cosplay. It suggests that as long as you wear the clothes and eat the food, you belong. This cheap use of symbols totally ignores the real struggle of cultural identity, the deep clash of values, mindset, and that true sense of belonging. Real identity isn't a costume you can just put on. Finally, we have the classic Hollywood cool-down trick, just throw in a common enemy. Suddenly, Li Shan and Mr. Ping are best buddies, and the conflict is magically gone. But let's be real, this isn't a solution. It's just hitting the pause button. You might think I'm overreacting about their drama, but in China, this conflict is that intense. It's a kind of mess that's incredibly explosive, yet somehow impossible to talk about openly. It's a silent war that the movie just chose to ignore. Blood ties versus moral debt. In the West, the logic behind this situation is pretty consistent. A child is seen as an independent individual. So, Paul's search for his biological father is viewed as his personal right. As adoptive father, Mr. Ping's role is more of a spotter. If he showed intense possessiveness, Western values would actually see that as immature or even selfish. That's why the movie tones down his emotional reaction. Adoption is usually seen as a contract built on law and love. Adoptive parents are mentally prepared for the child to search for their roots from day one. They rarely feel the sense of betrayal. To them, they have fulfilled their duty of raising the child. The child's search for blood relatives It's about completing their own story, not rejecting the love they were given. They feel like this is a kid's life. If he makes a choice, we support it. But in China, this logic hits a massive roadblock, rooted in a moral code that's thousands of years old. In China, we have a saying, 血浓于水. Blood is thicker than water. It means that sharing the same blood creates an unbreakable bond. Historically, the foundation of Chinese society relied on the clan system within villages. Large families lived together, supporting each other and facing hardship as one. If you succeed, the whole family shares the glory. If you fail, the whole family shares the shame. This means you don't just belong to yourself, you belong to your family. A structure built entirely on bloodlines. We also say, 身体发肤受之父母, our bodies, hair, and skin are gifts from our parents. This emphasizes the supreme importance of one's biologic roots. This is the very core of what we call 孝. At the same time, we have another saying, 子不教，父之过. If a child is not taught, it is the father's fault. This means if a child isn't properly raised and disciplined, the parent is to be blamed. This emphasizes the massive importance of upbringing. Raising a child requires an immense investment of time, energy, and money. Turning a child into a self-reliant adult is an incredibly tough journey. So, when the child grows up, they are expected to repay the person who raised them, not just with words, but with their own time, energy, and resources. We say, 滴水之恩当涌泉相报. A drop of kindness should be repaid with a flowing spring. This isn't just a thank you, it's a moral obligation to the adoptive father. This is the core of what we call 忠. In China, loyalty and filial piety hold supreme states. They are the twin pillars of Confucian ethics, the very bedrock of the nation and the family. But here lies the moral paradox. The biological father represents filial piety, while the adoptive father represents loyalty. How do you choose? You could just be like Paul and say, I want both. But let's be real, love is inherently selfish. It always has a preference. That's why this topic is such a painful dilemma in China. Yet, one we rarely discuss openly. It's a direct challenge to the most fundamental moral codes in our DNA. There's also a fascinating cultural quirk. In China, you can almost never call your elders by their names. Whether it's your biological father or your adoptive father, they are both dead. But in the West, people tend to split the father role into two different functions. The biological father provides the DNA, medical history, and clues to your origin. The adoptive father is the dad, the guy who changes your diapers, shows up for daily life, and teaches you how to play ball. In the West, a child might call their biological father by his first name, while calling their adoptive father dad. But in the Chinese context, this kind of naming difference would be an unthinkable disaster. Perpetual foreigners versus cultural outcast. This deep clash in culture DNA is more than just a fun debate about movie logic. It is a lived reality of the entire Asian diaspora. In this reality, their Eastern roots are like their biological father, while their Western environment acts like their adoptive father. If Kung Fu Panda 3 were real life, Paul wouldn't be a hero. He'd be a person torn apart by two words. For many Chinese Americans or immigrants, the identity crisis isn't something you solve with a magic dragon warrior transformation. It's a lifelong negotiation in a space where you are too Chinese for the West and too Westerner for your family. I remember a scene from the movie Green Book. Even though the words were spoken by a black man, that same sense of suffocating embarrassment is felt by everyone living in this in-between. You want to believe the world is inclusive and welcoming, but the truth is, it's not nearly as kind as you like to imagine. In the eyes of Western society, it doesn't matter how fluent your English is or how westernized your mindset has become. Because of your face, you will always be the perpetual foreigner. People will ask, where are you from? And when you see California, they don't feel like they've got the answer they were looking for. Yet, switching to the Eastern perspective, going back to the Panda village is rarely as happy or easy as the movie shows. In the real world, when overseas Chinese look back at their heritage, they face another invisible wall. This painful truth is clearly shown in Lulu Wang's film, The Farewell. Unlike Paul, who easily finds his true self just by eating dumplings, the main character, Billy, returns to China only to find herself stuck in the middle. Her Western belief in individual rights clashes deeply with her Chinese family's decision to hide a terrible illness from her grandmother. Even in daily life, this struggle never ends. In the animation movie Turning Red, director Domi Shi shows the heavy pressure of traditional family roles that many young Asian Americans face every day. They have to fight hard to be independent while desperately trying not to disappoint their parents. For real-life Asians, living between the ghouls who raised them and the panda village they come from means always feeling like an outsider. They are too Western to be fully accepted by the traditional families, yet too deeply connected to China to ever completely forget their past. So, trying to be the perfect son to a gross while fully belonging to a panda village, in real world, that's mission impossible. It's nearly impossible to find the sweet spot where everyone is happy and you still feel like yourself. It's a heavy topic, and honestly, there doesn't seem to be a perfect solution. That's exactly why we get the weird twist plot of Kung Fu Panda 3. After all, the director had to keep the PG rating. They choose a happy ending over the real one, just to keep the kids.